All right, good evening. I'd like to open the September 19th meeting for the Wakefield Conservation Commission. We'll take roll call. I do know that Jim will not be with us tonight, and I know Haley will also not be joining us. That being said, Ken.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Peter.
Peter?
Peter, I see you. Peter, taking roll call. Peter has a mic problem, but I do see Peter. Teresa.
Here.
All right. All right, first up is minutes. I don't know that we have enough members to approve the August 15th minutes.
Bob,
Yes.
you only have to have read the minutes to be able to approve them.
Okay, then we should be able to take care of that. Anybody have any questions or concerns with the August 15th minutes? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve them?
Make motion.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Ken?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. All right, next up is the approval of the minutes for September 5th. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion, Bob.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Ken?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
And I also vote yes.
Okay. Done.
All right, DEP 313631, that's 94 Butler Ave. That's been continued at the request of the applicant. And continue to October 5th as of now, if there's anybody here for Butler Ave. All right, next up is DEP 313632. That's 60 Farm Street, Town of Wakefield Permanent Building Committee. Public hearing notice of intent for the construction of a new high school building, track and field, parking and circulation, and utilities within land underwater, inland bank, and the buffer to bordering vegetated wetlands. Is the applicant here? It looks like we have a number of representatives. Who would like to start us off?
I will start. Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to ask that Megan Collins be enabled to share her screen. We have a presentation prepared this evening.
And for the record, please identify yourselves.
Sure. I would be happy to make introductions. First, I want to thank you for allowing our team to present this project. It's a very important project this evening, the Wakefield Memorial High School project. First, representing the PBC is Chairman Joe Bertrand.
Good evening.
I'm just going to run through all of these because we have quite a bit to get through. Representing the town, our owner's project manager, Left Field, Lynn Stapleton. I'm thrown off now. I can't see everybody. Craig DiCarlo and Tim Baker. We have SMA, the design team, and our consultant. My name is Erin Pristilio. I'm a civil engineer. Peter Rebuck and Tom Marina are also civil engineers on the project, and you'll hear from Peter a little bit later on. Megan Collins, landscape architect, and Helen Fantini, the project manager. We are the architects and engineers for the new high school. Mary Rimmer is also joining us. She's our project wetland consultant. And we also have David Capaldo and Jerry Hammersley representing Bond Building. They are our construction manager.
Thank you, Erin.
My pleasure. So this is, like you said, the first public hearing for the project. For the notice of intent, we submitted our submission package to you on September 7th. This evening, we're just planning to review the information that was submitted, but we really hope to get to a discussion about the project and what next steps are for review and approval. I also wanted to note that you mentioned we have a DEP number 313632, and as of earlier today, there were no comments posted by DEP yet. So we're going to start with the existing site. The current high school is located at 60 Farm Street in Wakefield. Many of you here this evening are familiar with the site. The school building and the Beasley Oval and parking make up the majority of the site. Farm Street is to the west, which is on the top of the page. And Hemlock Road is to the south, which is the left. Thank you. But this site is also part of a larger campus, which includes Woodville Elementary School and several field facilities: Burnett Softball Field, Landrigan Field, Dobbins Tennis Courts, and Walsh Baseball Field. There's also parking adjacent to Landrigan Field across from Hemlock Road, and that's what we call the upper lot. The project includes several delineated wetland resources and their associated buffer zones. And you'll see here, starting with the northern wetland in green, and remember that's on the right side of the page, we have wetland A, and then clockwise around, we have wetland B, E, D, and C. These wetlands that were submitted on the plans were all included in the ORAD that the project team received from you back in July of this year. So in general, water flows through the site from south to north. Within the watershed, it's connected via a series of underground culverts, which you'll see here in blue. Essentially, all of the project site and surrounding roadways drain through the site and in some way end up in wetland A, and that's the wetland on the right side of the page to the north. Wetland A makes its way to the Mill River, which is on the other side of the Woodville School, and eventually discharges to the Saugus River and ultimately to the Boston Harbor. So in addition, the notice of intent included background information on several other aspects of the site, including a FEMA firm, indicates that the site is not within any flood zones, natural heritage and endangered species mapping, which indicates that there are none on the project site, a critical area map, which indicates there are none on the project site, and also a map showing our extensive soil testing that has occurred to date for the project. The Wakefield Memorial High School project includes a new 259,000 gross square foot building designed for 1,000 students in the district. Site design includes outdoor learning and gathering areas, accessible walkways, a new Beasley Oval, of course, parking, underground utilities, and replacing the culvert, pretty much the extent of the project limits. And also the major offsite improvement of the realignment in the roundabout at Farm Street, Hemlock Road, and the project will be phased. The project will be phased. We're currently getting into finer grain details with bond building. I would contend the project will essentially be built in two major phases. I'm sure bond may beg to differ. It could be boiled down to one phase to build the new building on the existing Beasley Oval, and then the next phase to abate, demolish, and build the new oval. It's as simple as that. The notice of intent included several phasing diagrams, which start to get into that finer grain detail. And we and Bond are here tonight, happy to discuss some of those details if they're relevant and if you'd like later on. Through the use of porous pavement, the team is able to provide all of this rich site program, including more parking, while reducing the overall impervious cover by almost 1 acre. Peter will talk about this later, how this relates to our stormwater management plan and the design of our drainage system. The project does include work in the buffer zone. And now Megan will speak about that and kind of describe the existing and proposed conditions of the buffer zone and how the team utilized various strategies to reduce or limit impact to the buffer zone.
You can see here our existing conditions. We have included developed and undeveloped areas. The conversion of previously undeveloped areas to developed areas is minor in the proposed plan. Part of the project strategy to limit impacts in the 100-foot buffer was to stay within the existing footprint of the track. These sections were included in the report and show other strategies implemented to reduce impacts, including building a segmented block retaining wall to limit excavation and encroachment towards the wetland, porous pavements, and native plant species selection. We also will be including educational signage to bring additional awareness to the benefits and function of the resources. The upper parking lot extension will have a poured-in-place retaining wall with plantings along the west and north sides of the wall. Our Central Commons area will include additional plantings to provide shade, and these will be in an area that extensively was a track before, so it's really bringing vegetation into a place where there was absolutely nothing before. So we're really trying to bring benefit to the buffer zone and really increase the vegetation cover. I also will add that the pavements in the Central Commons and throughout the buffer zone, throughout the site, will be porous pavements. The tree removal analysis shows that the tree removal includes 7 trees in the buffer zone of wetland A and 2 trees in the buffer zone of wetland B. 1 tree along wetland B is questionable, but we chose to include it in the project to be safe. Our efforts to maintain development to the existing track footprint really helped to reduce impacts of tree removal in the buffer of wetland B. Per requirement, our tree replacement plan is designed to provide shade and vegetation in places that don't previously have vegetation, places that were either dominated by the track or were designated as lawn. The species included in the project are native species, and the project will include trees, shrubs, perennials, plugs, and seed in the restoration effort. You can see here that the light green are the deciduous replacements, and we're only highlighting the trees specifically. There will be additional understory shrubs and ground covers as well. And then the dark green here are the evergreens that we're including. Now I'm going to pass it over to Peter to discuss the remaining work in the buffer zone of Wetland A and the stormwater plan.
Thanks, Megan. The last, but definitely not least piece of the project that requires work within the buffer zone is the construction of a new end wall to serve the relocated culvert through the site. I'll give some more detail on the culvert in a second, but sticking with the theme of buffer zone impacts, the plan is to build a new end wall directly adjacent and almost attached to the existing end wall, which is along the Burnett softball field outfield. This would leave the existing end wall in place. Leaving the existing end wall in place will help maintain grades as much as possible along the slope adjacent to wetland A. The new end wall will be outside of the wetland limits, but there will be some temporary impacts. These were listed on the WPA form that was included with the NOI, and it's about 44 linear feet of bank and 415 square feet of land underwater, which will be temporarily impacted. These impacts will all be repaired at the end of construction, and based off of the location of the new end wall, we'll actually create new resources, which will be a total of 94 linear feet of bank and 590 square feet of land underwater. So in front of you, the image on the right is a plan view of the new end wall attached to the old one, and then on the left is a graphic we created showing a rendering of what it will look like with the existing on the left side dashed in red there, and then we imposed what would be the new angled end wall there to the right. So switching gears a little bit from buffer zone impacts to the stormwater design portion of the NOI, I'll start at an overall view and end up on this talking about the specific details of the on-site stormwater system. So on this slide, you'll see a watershed map that was created by a consultant that was hired by the town, showing different subcatchment areas that ultimately discharge to the end wall that I was just discussing. The end wall is at the top of this map, and the high school project area is highlighted in yellow. So you can see that the yellow highlighted project is downstream from most of the watershed. You'll also notice that the project site is only a small percentage of what ultimately discharges to the end wall. The design team has worked closely with the town to understand the watershed study and flood mitigation measures that are being recommended by the consultant. A major part of the coordination between the design team and the town engineering department has been how the high school project fits into the overall watershed and the town's visions for flood mitigation in this area of the town. You can think of it as the design for the high school project has almost two separate pieces, even though they're tied together. One is the off-site flow that is coming from the subcatchments and going through the site to the end wall, and the other is the on-site flows that are being created by the high school, entering the same culvert and discharging to the same place. So keeping that in mind, the first piece is easy because Bill and his consultant have done all the work for us. The watershed was studied, a culvert design was recommended, and it was basically up to us to make it work through the site. You can go to the next slide, Megan, thanks. The culvert does need to be relocated. So this image shows in red the existing culvert, which you can see conflicts with the new building, as well as numerous other site features. And in yellow is the proposed routing that avoids both the existing and proposed buildings. In blue, on the far right under Burnett Field, is a portion of the existing culvert that we're proposing to leave in place to keep the softball field online longer and limit disturbance to the field. Since we submitted the NOI, we actually have further reviewed the design of the culvert itself on our end, and we've talked to Bill, and we are adjusting the size of the culvert. We had submitted something different than the recommendations, and we're ultimately going to go with the recommendations of the town consultant. We're currently working on these revised calculations. We haven't submitted them yet. And we're going to revise our calculations and our report to reflect this change. And we'll be submitting those imminently for review by Bill and the rest of the team. And then one small thing we haven't touched on yet is the outflow from Wetland B, which, as Aaron showed earlier, actually joins the larger on-site culvert, flows north to the end wall. So this flow that currently goes under Beasley Oval will also need to be redirected, and we will reroute that around the school, join the culvert at Burnett Field, and then discharge to the same end wall. And we will be upsizing this pipe to help with flood mitigation, as well as some small on-site flows that will be joining this flow.
What size is that pipe currently?
It's currently a 24-inch, and we're proposing a 30-inch.
Okay, thank you.
So on the next slide, saving the best for last, of course, is the on-site stormwater system. This will treat and discharge the water that actually comes from the high school site as opposed to just passing through it. The existing site has little to no stormwater management in the modern sense. There are no recharge structures, no water quality BMPs, no green infrastructure, and there's lots of pavement. The proposed site will incorporate modern stormwater design strategies to lower peak rates and volumes, as you can see in that table that has lots of numbers. The column on the far right is the important one, where it says decrease. That's if you don't take anything away from that table, just look at the heading of that last column. The stormwater system will improve water quality and groundwater recharge, and it will also balance maintenance and site limitations. Some of the specific features that are proposed are subsurface chamber systems, water quality units, high flow rate media filtration, small bioretention area, and permeable pavement. These features have been located around the site based off of site constraints, site programming, and the soil conditions that were exposed during the geotechnical explorations. Most importantly, the proposed site will have less impervious than the existing. I know this all sounds great. Excuse me?
Just a question, is the permeable pavement going to be throughout all the new paved areas, the parking areas and the like, or no?
No, so the majority of the vehicular, actually all of the vehicular paving will be standard bituminous.
Okay,
We are just using permeable for pavers as well as pedestrian paving.
okay.
And then I also just wanted to mention that we will also be meeting all of the Massachusetts stormwater standards that are applicable, as this is a redevelopment project by definition. So we are only required to meet those to the extent practical. However, we are meeting or exceeding all of them. And with that, that was our brief, quick overview of the NOI, and we're happy to open this up to discussion, questions, comments, anything that you got.
All right, that was a lot of information in a quick 20 minutes or so. Couple things that come to mind. You talked about the culvert under the existing field area being different than what you proposed on the drawing we just saw. Are we talking about additional culvert or larger diameter, or what is it that's changing?
Hi, I'd be happy to take that. So part of this project that is inherently difficult is building on a site while school maintains operation. And so there's going to be a lot of gymnastics that has to happen to allow for parking and drop off and waste removal and deliveries to occur. But there's this one stretch where the new building is going to be located pretty close to the existing building. And we also have to thread the needle and get this relocated culvert through this narrow stretch. And so we had originally proposed, and it's really just changing the configuration and the size of the culvert. We've really focused, this has been an item of focus for our construction manager. We're lucky to have them this early on so they can help us through these design issues. But you know, the natural progression of our coordination has really been helpful, and that we can provide this recommended size. It's 2 twin 4x4s to go through the site. That's what the town wanted through their consultants' work, and so we are pleased that we're going to make that happen for this project and for the town. It's just going to be a matter of revising some of our overall drainage calcs. And resubmit those. So we're working on that right now.
So it's 2 24-inch?
So
pipes?
it'll 2 4x4, 4 foot
Oh,
by 4
oh,
foot.
Okay,
And
And these-
that's the main one that runs in front of the school. The 30-inch pipe that Peter mentioned, the discharge from wetland B, was at the bottom of the page. That's going to be rerouted around. That's the 30-inch.
okay.
That one won't change.
So the wider yellow line through the site is the 2 4x4s.
Yep. It will be, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
and that picks up drainage at various points as it goes along, presumably from the various subcatchments.
It does.
Okay.
Can I ask, is there a plan that shows the distance of the work in the buffer zone from the wetland area? I know, and according to the description, there are at least one place, right, where it's fewer than 25 feet. And just wondering if you can show us, and I know it's a big plan, if you could show us where that area is and the distance.
Sure. I don't know if we can bring up just the plans and show how close existing conditions are, because existing conditions is in some places within that 25 feet.
Sure.
Yeah. It might take us a second to get and pull up the project plans that show some of that stuff to us.
Sure, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, this is an overview, and you can kind of see the delineation between the purple and the green. The purple being what we've kind of classified as developed, and the green being undeveloped.
Mhm.
But Megan, I'm not sure if you can maybe close out of this and pull up the plans that might show some of that.
What was the size of the existing culvert under the field? I forget what you had said.
It's 24 inches.
That's it, just 124 running?
Mhm.
The existing twin culvert
Yes,
that's under the field now
yes.
is.
Oh, the baseball
already s-
field. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It runs the length of the property all the way to the by the softball field where it outflows.
So the size varies on the site. I'm sorry, Bob, I thought you were talking about the, yep, existing conditions would be good. So there's a portion below the baseball field that's not within our scope of work. It's not in our limit of work, and we're leaving that alone. I believe
Okay.
that that's about 36 inches.
Okay,
When it gets to our site, it jumps to twin arch metal pipes. I think it's a 44 by 60. There's 2 of them.
okay,
And that runs through the site to the head wall. And then there's a 24-inch pipe that discharges from wetland B, which is at the bottom of the page below the existing Beasley Oval.
right, okay, thank you.
So you'll
Can you
see,
I just wanted to
Megan.
make sure you could see.
yeah, we can see if you can zoom into where your mouse is there. So the wetlands are quite close to the existing track edge. In that spot.
Sorry, I'm really trying not to go to the next page. There we go. So you can see here, this is the existing buffer line, and this is the existing track and the existing fence.
Yeah, so that's right up against it, obviously, yeah.
Mhm. And if you pull up the proposed layout plan, that shows we're trying to pull kind of some of that, at least that impervious surface away, so we have room to kind of revegetate that buffer.
Yeah, Teresa, were you looking to see what the project has proposed, how close
Yeah,
that would?
and that's what I think that's what they're trying to pull up right now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, take your time.
So
Okay,
you can start to see kind of how we have this pedestrian pathway swooping around. It's not going to be impervious, so it's a pervious surface that we're proposing. And we've proposed a retaining wall along that edge. It's not tall, but again, it's everything we can do to limit work. You know, as we get closer, we want to stay as far away as we can.
So it looks like you have pulled away
Mhm.
further, but I can't tell.
Yeah, how much further, right?
The proposed wall is 6 feet at its closest point to the wetland line.
okay,
And the existing fence is like 1 foot, let's say, in the same area. So we have pulled it away about 5 feet at the pinch point.
Can you go into some details about the entire stormwater system as far as, you know, any type of recharge and what are you doing for catch basins and deep sumps and any other type of treatment that's happening?
Sure. So we have, and actually, Megan, I guess while the plans are up, if you might as well switch. Yep, looks like you're already ahead of me. So we have proposed 2 subsurface infiltration systems. Those are located in northern portion of the site, where the elevation's higher and the soils are a little better. Those are subsurface chamber systems. One is a little bit larger than the other because that one is actually taking flow from the artificial turf field. So that one is taking flow from the field, and the other one is taking flow from that northern parking lot area. And then pre-treatment for those is through what's known as high flow rate media filtration, which is basically, if you haven't seen those, they're sort of concrete boxes that you put in the ground, and you fill them with an engineered media, which is like a coarse sand. So the water enters at grade and filters down through those systems, and the media does all the work. It takes out all the bad stuff, TSS and all that from the water. That water then enters under drain, which is in the box, and is taken away by gravity into the infiltration system. So those are pre-treated by that, as well as we have a few deep sump catch basins that go to water quality units. That's another treatment train that enters those infiltration systems.
What will be the TSS removal for that one that's taking runoff from the upper lot?
In terms of percentage wise,
Yes.
I don't know the exact percentage. I know it's over 80. There'll be two different treatment trains. One would be deep sump catch basin, which has some removal, to a water quality unit, which will be a proprietary structure, which is sized based off of the catchment area and the impervious area draining to it. And then those will enter the system, as well as these engineered media filtration boxes, which have a certain percentage TSS removal associated with those.
Does the media in those boxes need to be replaced, or is there a way to flush it or clean it?
Yeah, so it's dependent on what manufacturer you use, because it does need to be replaced eventually. It does have a relatively long lifespan, and you would definitely need to clean the surface. But in terms of maintenance, you just need to replace the media as long as the manufacturer recommends.
So there's access ports somewhere to easily get to those?
Yeah, they'll be at grade. So
Okay.
when you're looking at it, you will see just a small concrete curb, and then the
Okay.
media is infilled in those. So you'll be able to get to the media by just scraping off 2 inches of mulch.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a relatively new stormwater design feature. So I know a lot of towns are incorporating them. If you drive around the area, you'll see them popping up. So there might be a few, need to work those out a little bit, but we know they are catching on, and they're a really good alternative to the catch basins and stormwater quality units.
Is there an O&M plan included for those?
Yes, we've included those in the O&M.
Okay.
And they'll also be, because it'll come from a manufacturer, it'll be manufacturer recommendations for the product that's ultimately selected.
Okay. Any other treatment systems on site, swirl chambers or anything else?
I believe we have a small oil water separator, just for the loading and the heavy truck area. But other than that, no, we tried to really keep it to a limited palette of BMPs, predominantly for maintenance reasons. But it also, I think it helps when you're identifying areas of the site and how you can treat them, and keeping it similar across the site. The one feature that is standalone is the bioretention area, which is in the north. And it's really one of the areas where we have surface available to put a bioretention area. And that's obviously at grade, and that's visible, and it's adjacent to the wetlands. So it is sort of, keeping that vegetation at the surface, and not digging too deep. And that'll have an overflow, and is sized appropriately.
Can you give us or show us the details on that?
Yeah, we have a typical cross section we do, but it's 3-to-1 slopes on the sides. It'll have an 8-inch overflow. We actually, the town has a standard detail for that. So we've really adapted that in terms of the depth of biofiltration media that's put in and the size of the overflow and all that. I believe the details on 607, Megan. On the bottom middle right there. Yeah, so this is really just a typical detail. But as you can see, it's a deep portion of biofiltration media, some plantings, which Megan can mention more what we're planning to do with that. And then what this doesn't show is the 8-inch overflow, which will be set at the height of the curb so that if it does fill up, it doesn't overtop the curb and go back into the parking lot.
What will be flowing into this? What area?
It's taking flow from the parking lot, which on the north is actually the district office parking lot. So you can see that rectangle there, as well as a small portion of the driveway there. So
Okay.
it is a pretty small area that's relatively contained. And we have two curb breaks to split up the flow entering it, and those will have some crushed stone and some gravel to dissipate the flow, as well as provide pre-treatment before it enters the bioretention area.
Where's all the roof runoff going?
So the roof runoff is actually going right into the culvert. That's not being infiltrated. For a multitude of reasons. One being we have really limited space here for infiltration. Two, where the culvert is located, logistically to get the roof runoff to the area of the site, which is the west area that has the better soils, to get that to the better soils and then back with the inverts of the culvert is tricky. And the roof runoff is it is clean, so you don't need to pre-treat it or anything. So it would be good to infiltrate it, but we just thought based off of the location of where the infiltration systems wanted to be, that logistically it made more sense to infiltrate some of the parking areas in that area.
So would that be piped directly to the culvert?
Correct. Yeah, we have a couple. I believe there's 3 or 4 locations. We're still fine tuning those locations, but that'll come right out of the building, go through a structure, and then enter the culvert. And we're working on backflow prevention of how to make sure when that culvert does fill up that there's no risk of anything going back into the building.
What type of roof is proposed? Is it going to be like a membrane with ballast or what?
I'm not entirely sure.
I'm assuming it's a white PVC roof.
Yeah, I believe it's PVC, but that's outside of my purview.
Okay.
There was discussion of putting solar on the school. Is that going to be done? Solar photovoltaics?
So the project will present to the community a solar-ready roof. As you know, we have been also coordinating very closely with your local utility, and as
Right.
part of the memorandum of agreement, I believe the intent is to have panels provided by the utility and installed at the end of construction, so that our planning pays off, and that we deliver that a building with solar PV on the roof is delivered to the community.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Was there any discussion about maybe some vegetated sections on the roof in some places or anything like that?
Megan, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the roof terrace that's part of the project.
There is a roof terrace that's part of the project, and I don't think that we can see it here. There is a roof terrace that's oh, it's right here. I was looking in the wrong place. It's right facing the south side. The school has asked that there not be vegetation, that it's not something that they are prepared to take care of. So it is currently planned to be a paver instruction area. There is a greenhouse that will be used for instruction, and there will be vegetation in there, which is my understanding. But we were asked to remove vegetation because there was just no ability to care for it.
Was a lighting plan submitted with the NOI?
Was not. We provided a narrative about general approach to lighting.
Okay.
If that's something that's required, we'd be, we would definitely provide it.
Or at least let's kind of talk about what you're proposing and where.
Yep. So this pathway that swoops the back of the building, and I'm guessing you're going to get at the buffer zone, where we have wetland resources in their buffer zones, is parking. And so parking comes with providing a minimum level of security. And so it's not just the parking at the north of the building, but also kind of this parking that's not directly adjacent to the school that the students will be using as well. The expansion of the upper lot is in the buffer zone as well. So these parking lot areas will be appropriately lit for not only after hours use, but also for any security that might be installed as part of the project at these parking areas, both at the upper lot and then north of the school building.
Yeah, we would certainly want to talk about some of those more sensitive areas and what type of lighting, directional or degrees Kelvin and all of that for that lighting, especially in the sensitive areas. What you're looking at, what you're proposing.
Okay. We are proposing pedestrian level lighting. It's going to be LED and fully programmed, or programmable, I should say, which will be by the district. I will say that large sports lights currently exist in the buffer zone today, so I imagine it's going to be a drastic improvement from over the existing conditions. But that's something that we can look to. Are you looking for lighting levels at a certain?
Yeah, looking for lighting levels, especially in that lot on the bottom right, plan, southeast.
Okay.
And then what you're planning along that walkway, close to the buffer zone.
Okay.
Upper lot also would be interested in what's going on up there.
Is this school a 2-story or 3-story building?
3 stories on the academic areas. So those are, if you're looking at the plan, it's kind of the L-shaped on the left side of the school. Those are 3 stories. On the right side of the page is where you have the larger spaces, the gymnasium and the auditorium, and those are at most 2 stories, but some of those spaces are taller. The gym's taller.
Okay. It actually could provide some shade to the wetland.
Is there a snow storage plan or snow removal plan in the NOI?
So that's something that wasn't necessarily spelled out in a plan, but we've certainly had many conversations with the town. So the town maintains the roadways, the places for vehicles, and the school maintains the places for pedestrians. So we have this kind of split maintenance plan that happens on the site. And we've talked with the town that plows to talk about what their approach is. And generally speaking, they plow to the edges of the roadways, and when it becomes too much, they remove it from the site. And that's what they do right now, and that's what their plan is to do in the future.
What
So
snow,
any treatment would be in the parking areas would be by the town or by the school?
By the town.
Okay.
Mhm.
So all of that snow melt will make its way into the culvert directly, right?
As it does today. Yep.
Yep. And any treatment besides deep sump catch basins in those parking areas?
Deep sump hooded catch basins. We have one oil water separator. There's the high rate media filter boxes that are kind of peppered throughout the parking areas. And then the bioretention area as well.
Mhm. Is snow removal going to be needed along the portion on the back of the building that's right adjacent to the wetland?
It's going to be needed for an extent. So that back pathway serves kind of a couple different serves as a couple different features for the site. One, it serves as access for the utility. So the main underground electrical duct bank kind of hugs the building at the bottom of the page, and they need access to their manholes. And so we've provided a wider portion of this pathway in the event of an emergency, and there's some need to get back there with their equipment.
How wide is that pathway? I'm just trying to understand. It's hard for me to envision that. Is that kind of a road where you can drive for example, a truck from the parking lot all the way in back of the building and come out the other side?
No, so it's 12 feet wide when it comes at the bottom of the parking lot, and then that 12-foot width stops at that corner of the building. And that's where the electrical manholes are located. And that's also part of our conversations with safety and security, and how first responders, not fire engines, but how police might circulate the building in the event they need to get back there.
So if you move your cursor to the left, is that going to have to be plowed at all or not?
I don't think it will be plowed, but it's a pedestrian pathway, and students might need to get back there for academic reasons, and so I'm sure it will be maintained.
Okay, I guess
So it
what
could
I'm
be
getting
a
at is
sidewalk plow or something back there.
if you've got a 12-foot, I'm just looking at this, that if you have a 12-foot, if there's only a 12-foot roadway that you've got to clear, and you can't move it, and if you're approaching it from right to left, you can't move it to the right because the building's there, and then the wetlands are sort of, I guess there's some buffer zone, but I'm just thinking about snow removal being an issue at that particular juncture.
Yep. We found that snow melts differently on porous surfaces also. I at the initial snowfall, of course, it will need to be moved from the surface, but the melt just goes into the ground. It doesn't run off or then refreeze, after it gets cold again. And so it does behave quite differently on porous surfaces than traditional asphalt.
So is that paved with regular asphalt back there, or is that pavers?
So this swooping pathway is going to be porous pavement.
Okay.
We have introduced porous pavers kind of in the knuckles of the building, where we have programmed academic spaces for the students and the users of the school.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a wall or fence on the at the back of the site? I can't tell.
Back of this pathway that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yep.
Next to the wet.
Was that one of the shots that you had in the prior?
Well, we have a retaining wall.
Yeah, the section shows it.
So
okay, there's a retaining wall along that whole side.
yeah,
the whole
there's
back.
a guardrail. There's a guardrail
I see.
Okay, it's just it's a guardrail, it's not,
But if you had to move the snow, that's tricky because you really can't move it to, you can't move it to the, closer to the building because it's, you can't really.
It's quite close for a stretch there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering
Mhm.
whether that just means it's going to be dumped over the
Right.
dumped over that fence into the I guess into the buffer zone. But
into the wetlands. No, not buffer zone, into the wetlands, I thought.
No, I mean there's a small buffer zone there.
Yep.
There's more buffer zone that's on the right, going back. There's more buffer zone,
Oh,
going from that right-hand parking lot halfway across the building, and then that's why I was asking on the other half where it gets right up to where you're 5 feet away, and that was where it wasn't entirely clear that you may have to clear that, but you're not planning on driving vehicles all the way back to the building, only halfway and back.
Yeah, so the section detail right in this slide shows you exactly what's happening there. Where the guardrail and the retaining wall ends, new plantings, buffer zone, and then the wetland is at the lowest point of, with the buffer straddling either side.
What are you looking at, Bob? I'm sorry.
So this slide shows the plan elevation of that whole area, section, from the building wall through the walkway to the guardrail to the retaining wall to the new plantings and buffer, and then the wetland and the buffer on the other side. So this gives you a nice view of what that looks like. So I can't scale it off, but there is, I don't know, 30 feet or maybe so to the.
It's about 30 feet where that section is cut. Yep.
Where the E section is, you mean, or
Yeah.
In this section, in this area, it's about 30 feet from the wetland. So if the snow were to go over the guardrail, there is a wall, there is a buffer area with new planting, and then you get the existing, buffer area before you get to the actual wetland in the middle.
But what about between the E and the parking lot? Doesn't get that kind of touch right up against the wetland? There. That, if you're.
You can see here that this is the end of the 100-foot buffer. So this area here is outside of the buffer.
Oh, it's outside the buffer zone.
And then the next buffer for wetland A starts over here.
Starts here. Thank you. So that's not problematic at all to have the, so it's not it's generally not going to be problematic if you had to move snow off the, over the retaining wall, starting with the parking lot on the right and moving in back of the building until you get, and it gets a little tight right before you get to the H line. But the part that's tightest, it isn't going to be wide enough so that you don't have to have clear enough to like drive a truck or, a big vehicle.
That's right.
Am I saying it right?
You are.
Okay. So that can actually be maybe like a snowblower can go through a clear path or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we would also certainly want to consider non-chloride based de-icers back there. Or wherever possible on the site in those sensitive areas.
Okay. All right. We can talk to the town and to the district about whether that's feasible. It might ultimately come down to budgetary constraints, but we can look into see if that's possible.
I mean, really, the whole site, since everything's dumping into that culvert, anything we can minimize from a chloride-based de-icer getting into that culvert and making its way to the Mill River and Saugus River would be, better situation. Obviously, what's happening today isn't a good situation, but it's not the standard we should be looking at.
That's right. The whole point of this is to try to remediate some of the to make it better than it was.
All right. Any other questions right now from the commission?
I just ask, when do you hope to begin this work?
As soon as we have an order of conditions.
Okay. I set you up for that one. That was allowed.
In fairness, the team has been prepared to start construction in earnest in the spring. of 25.
Okay.
The spring of, I'm sorry, spring of 25.
Oh, sorry, 24.
Right,
Okay.
right, right,
I
right.
thought you were getting, okay. I
Time is flying. 24.
guess we can continue it for a month.
A year and a half.
So I want to be efficient and productive. You know, there was a bunch of questions that talked about asking about the details of our stormwater management system. We've certainly been in touch with Bill Renault and his team. I understand he's going to be doing a very detailed review. And we welcome those comments when they're available. Of course, we need to resubmit our drainage, you know, based on our more recent coordination efforts with our construction manager and talking about how we could imagine fitting culverts in where maybe it would be more difficult, but that's for us to figure out. So we're going to be revising our drainage and design to Bill, so that will be coming your way. I also heard that you'd like to hear more about lighting levels in the buffer zone.
Yes.
And specifically, you're looking for lighting calculations at lighting levels on a grid, or
Yeah,
just
yeah, we're looking for a few things, you know.
Yep.
What is the lighting you're planning on using in these sensitive areas, right? Directional lighting, dark sky compliant,
Of course. Yep.
you know, all of that. And I realize there's going to be different types of lights in different areas. You know, parking lot's going to have one type of lighting, the walkway may have a different. So whatever details you can give us there.
Okay. Of course, so we'd be happy to provide some detail on that. And we can approach the district and the town about what the appetite may be to consider alternatives to sodium chloride for winter maintenance, and we'll have to see where that goes.
Okay,
Bob, are you gonna ask Rebecca if she had any questions, any comments?
I certainly am.
Okay.
Hi. Yeah, actually, I do have a few. I think it would be important to have some type of narrative that talks about the culvert relocation. And it sounds to me that you're changing the size. So what I'd like to know is what will that mean both upstream and downstream now that you're changing the size and also contributing the entire rooftop to that? So I'd like to know how much more water is going to go in that pipe based on that roof and what that means and what you think that will mean downstream, where it will end up.
So just to be clear, Rebecca, our HydroCAD analysis models each section of culvert so that we can understand how site enters the culvert, so that we can confirm that not only the size of it is appropriate, and we've coordinated that it was going to pass a 25-year storm, but that overall our analysis shows that our peak rates and volumes are decreased in the post-construction. It's only going to get bigger. And of course, flood mitigation projects are taken downstream to upstream. And so this is a natural project to be first in line. And so I'd be happy to provide a narrative for the record on all of that. But I just wanted to be clear that it's going to get bigger. We've modeled everything in pieces so that we can study kind of how our site impacts flow through the culvert.
Yep. And I think that's right. That makes total sense. And just having that, wrapping all that up and saying, taking that stormwater information and saying, okay, at the end of the pipe discharging into the wetland, it was this. At the end of our project, it will be this. And here's how we do or do not anticipate any impacts to the wetland at the end of pipe. So it's taking like that stormwater, I'm sure you have it, like the rates and the volumes, and saying, here's why it will not impact that. Or will not.
Okay, I mean, some of that was included. We had a whole section about the culvert and the drainage section, and we had a whole section about the end wall and the wetland section.
I was just reading the wetland section.
Okay, yep. If you go into the stormwater management section, it's a whole piece on the culvert, how we've modeled it, how we've included the watershed.
Yep, I was in the NOI, not the stormwater report.
That's okay. But we'd be happy. We're going to be going through it again because we're changing it. It's the configuration is changing, and people should be thinking about it like that. It's not like but happy to clarify and add any of those details.
So maybe what we can do is the next meeting, we can start with that discussion.
Sure.
Is that cool? All right.
Yep.
Anything else, Rebecca?
Not right this second. Thank you.
Will we be
Actually,
getting?
wait, I do have one quick question.
Sure.
Sorry. Is the reduction in impervious area that I think you said 0.97, is that that reduction solely because of the porous pavement? So let's suppose that porous pavement in a couple of years gets clogged up and someone comes back to us and says, oh, we decide we want to pave it. Does that mean there would, if that happened, does that mean there would be no reduction in impervious area?
Or an increase.
I'd have to look more closely at that.
Okay.
I can't tell you offhand, but we can come back with that information.
All right, I just was curious if that was the 0.97 was just the porous pavement itself.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
All right, Erin, was there anything else we asked for that you haven't covered?
I don't think so. The team is just really looking to be proactive in satisfying any and all concerns that you might have. Are you going to be issuing formal comments at any time, or is this are we just going to be prepared to discuss certain topics as meetings go on, just so that the team is ready?
Yeah, we should probably focus on a particular aspect at the next meeting.
Okay.
You know, probably stormwater is probably the logical place to go into detail.
More detail than we talked about tonight.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Bob, does that make sense to do before Bill Renault weighs in or not?
well, did Bill already submit comments on the initial design? Is that why you're changing what you
No.
are?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
No.
Do you anticipate, or when do you anticipate getting comments back from Bill?
Soon, I hope.
Because obviously we would.
Bob, you asked Bill that question.
Yeah, we'd be copied. We'd be copied on that.
Yeah, I would hope so.
So ideally, we would have that, within the next 2 weeks,
I would hope so. Yeah.
and we could focus on that.
Yep.
Rebecca, do you have any preferred, approach?
Maybe we could start with if we have the information and if it's appropriate to talk about it, maybe we can do the culvert relocation. And then maybe they could go through, and I'm sure it's written in here, but just tell us like how exactly that would be implemented. So how do they, I'm sure that you block off one, reroute. I'm sure it's in here, but I think it'd be really helpful to have a description of it, just as we're talking about culvert relocation, of how that'll happen during the construction phase.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah,
Yep.
like so maybe sequence plan.
We're going to be prepared to answer all of the stuff that came up tonight. So, have an answer on sodium chloride, and also talk to you more about the lighting proposed in the buffer zone. We can talk about, hopefully we'll have Bill's review complete by then. I see no reason to wait.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as far
And
as
all things
de-icers,
culvert, sure.
as far as de-icers, we have talked in the past about potassium acetate as an option. And there's others out there too. But the thought is to not use any chloride based, sodium chloride, potassium chloride, magnesium chloride, avoid all of the chlorides.
Okay.
If at all possible, anywhere on the site.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will try.
Okay.
We'll see where that goes. Yeah.
That's right. I'm
Any other questions for the commission? Peter?
Yeah, I just want to, I don't know when the appropriate time is, but Teresa made the comment that, that the building is going to be very close to the wetlands. So what we had before was we had the track that was out in the sun, which probably is not good, right next to the wetland. But now we have a 3-story building, which I guess I'll ask you guys whether that's an improvement or not, whether it provides actually some shade or whether the heat from the building is going to, would have an impact on the wetland, but I do think that the snow removal there, the possibility that there could be chemicals put down on the, in the back of the building, that's something that wasn't happening before.
Right.
And so all I'm trying to do is I think there are some it's not just all an improvement. I think potentially there's considerations running both ways. And I think as a commission, we want to make sure that we do everything we can so that on a net basis, it's better off than what it was.
Of course.
In terms of heat, can I ask you a question like this? The roofs of these buildings, are they still black, and and when you put solar panels on, do they actually generate even more heat because the sun, does that create, does that have a temperature impact? Is that going to have a temperature impact on the wetland?
That's a good question. I do not know that answer, but I'm going to bring this back to the team and have an answer next time.
But I think you said the roof is going to be white.
Yeah, the roof the roof is white. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's helpful then. That
Mhm.
obviously is. But still, that's one thing we didn't have before. You had a track and then artificial turf, I guess. I don't even know what-
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm curious with that rendering you have right there. So sunlight, getting to the back to the resource areas with the height of that roof and the angle of the sun, will that indeed provide, shade, or what will happen back there? That's not happening today. You can model that, correct?
There definitely would be way more shade.
Yeah.
Way more shade.
Well,
I can
certainly
see the roof,
There's none there now.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I guess 0. And I can sort of see now that the white roof is pretty much white. Yeah. Yes, that maybe is just an improvement. And I don't know whether that means that there's, whether there's, light coming from the back of the building, the light's going to shine on it because the interior lighting is going to, all I want to do is make sure that we didn't miss something that actually is a consideration running the other.
Peter, is your point that shade may be worse for the wetland?
No, I think shade would be better for the
Oh,
wetland.
okay.
Yes, no, I would say that would be the equivalent of planting trees along the back.
Right, okay.
That would actually provide something that isn't being provided. So that I thought was a plus, but the fact that there's going to be activity back, snow removal back there is especially concerning, I think, to me. And I just didn't know whether, whether you have 3, a block of, windows with light, that's going to be shining out from the interior of the building onto the wetland, whether that's something that we have to worry about. I just don't know. I'm just trying to understand. It's a totally different setup.
Mhm.
Even though, and I just want to make sure that we, just plot in our own plotting way, walk through all the things that are different.
One of the things I just thought of, it was a few months ago when we did the site walk with Mary, in the team. Were there any invasive species that we saw back there? I don't remember.
In the notice of intent, Megan submitted a lengthy list of everything that has been observed to date. So yes, to answer your question.
And you
is
said you
there
were
any
going to try
plan
to.
to manage those invasives?
I think we're going to do certainly and remove invasives in our limit of work. I think it would be unfair to chase invasives. Like, you could take that on as a separate project in and of itself. But Megan, I don't know if you can speak to maybe some strategies that we would look to employ here about invasives. There's certainly an interesting idea that we had only really touched upon in this hearing. It is included in our notice of intent, but it's the thought of incorporating educational signage to talk about, and it could be any number of topics, but we have introduced educational signage to the last project that we did, this poison ivy, just to educate the public about what it looks like and what it is and how it can impact ourselves. So I could see maybe some signage that talks about invasive species, maybe has some imagery of what we're talking about, and maybe some of the goals of the planting program is certainly in the buffer zone. I don't know, Megan, if you have anything to add.
And you said in the work area, you're going to obviously remove the invasive species, right? That as you find it.
Yes, absolutely. There are extensive invasives that are visible. And so those will be removed as part of the natural development of the site.
Right.
And typically part of the monitoring when we do work within the buffer zone is that there is a 2-year monitoring period that we continue to remove invasives after the development is complete. And so I would expect that would be included in this as well. And that, we do our best to remove all that is there and that's visible. And for me, the thing that sticks out on this site and that's so pervasive is bittersweet. And so a lot of the area that we're developing is removing that. And so I would really like to see some educational signage really informing the public about bittersweet and what it is, and really, proactively showing that this is something that you should pull from your own garden, that you should pull if you see it on the site, if it, in the future, so that kids and the public who use this site, there's a large public use on the site. There's lots of people who come to walk at the track and who are just walking by these invasives who have no idea. So, that educational infographic could really go a long way.
There's no Japanese knotweed though.
Not that I saw, which is like honestly a miracle.
Given how pervasive it is, yes.
Yeah. Not yet, huh? Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we'd want some details about what you're proposing and thinking back there. I do like that educational aspect you're talking about. That's certainly a very good idea.
We also would, include additional signage for what the proposed plantings are and what the proposed plantings do for the environment and for habitat production and to support pollinators, to support birds, to support soil health and, cleaning water as water is flowing through there into ultimately, as Aaron said, into the Charles.
Are you incorporating any pollinator type plantings in any of the areas you're proposing?
So definitely in that bioretention area, we would the best way that we have experienced to create these bioretention areas is to do a plug planting and then to do an overseed planting. And so we would include, wetland, rain garden and wetland plants that would ultimately be pollinator species as well.
This kind of creates a great opportunity, right? We got a school right here, obviously science classes, signage, educating the students, the opportunity for the classroom to come outside and learn about some of these different features that you're incorporating, the bioretention area and the other stormwater practices that are going in. All of this offers a great opportunity for education. So I think that signage idea can really be taken, to maybe a different level, or incorporated somehow with the school itself to provide additional educational opportunities.
Yes, they will be. There will be signage throughout the site explaining different parts of what is going on site. There are absolutely planned infographics near some of those high filtration media boxes that Peter was talking about, that really explain how the water is cleaned going through the media and what that does for the environment and and to support the plant species, because there will be planting in those boxes as well.
Great. The field, did you say that was going to be pervious or impervious? The football field, the track area.
That will be, sorry, it's synthetic turf, but it won't be lined. So it'll allow groundwater to recharge.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the commission or Rebecca? Any questions from the public? Okay.
I have one
So-
question. We're going to be preparing supplemental package to address kind of some of these things. When do we need to get that to you, Rebecca, so that we can, the commission can have it in advance of the next hearing?
By Thursday afternoon before the Tuesday meeting.
Okay.
So a couple days in advance. So, cause, I'll get it on Thursday and I'll forward it out to them, and then I don't work on Friday, so then they'll have it for the weekend.
Perfect. Perfect.
I
We'll be
think
in
it's
touch.
online too. There should be, just in case, but I think online there should be cutoff dates. I'll double
Okay.
check. It should be on the website.
We'll be in touch, just so you can
Yeah.
anticipate when we'll get you stuff.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank
All
you.
right, so you'd be ready to come back on October 5th?
I think that's the plan right now.
Okay, so we will continue until October 5th.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just did a quick calendar check, and I think the next meeting's the 3rd of October, not the 5th, Bob.
Yeah, I agree that.
Oh, I was looking at the,
Yeah, I know. I saw the notice too, and I just went and checked the
Yeah,
calendar. because
Too
it
many
didn't match.
fives. Okay, October 3rd.
Are we sticking with Tuesdays? Didn't we shift over to Thursdays at some point?
No, we
We
shifted
were
to
on
Tuesdays.
Thursday.
We
We moved
went
to Tuesday.
Thursday. We shifted
I thought
to
we
Tuesday.
went back and forth. Okay.
No.
So,
October 3rd it is.
What happened to 10 Broadway? They seem to have disappeared.
They don't have to be here.
Right, I don't think John was ever on, was he?
Okay,
he-
no, you're right. He wasn't on.
Yeah, it's just us.
Okay.
All right. All right, so
we lose
the,
Jim?
what's that?
We lose Jim Luciani?
He was not,
He
he
was not
Never
here.
on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
wasn't available.
You didn't have your headset on yet, Peter. That's why we
Yeah, I
couldn't
was
count you in
I'm
roll
still
call.
having- I am still struggling with my new technology. I've got
We'll get Jimmy right over there to help you out. Geek Squad, on the way.
Yep.
All right, so the only other thing we have is discuss and vote on order of conditions for 10 Broadway, unless you've got any other business, Rebecca.
Nope, that's it.
Judy, do you have any other business? Before we get into this?
Nope. The only thing is there's an open space plan committee meeting on the 27th, if anyone's interested. I sent the information around with the draft plan, if you can just send whatever comments you have. And then
Yeah,
there'll be a
started
public
through that.
forum in October.
Okay. All right. 10 Broadway. So we have our new general conditions.
Mhm.
And there was something that I mentioned at the last meeting that kind of had me a little confused. What was it? Is it something about snow removal?
Was it in the conditions you were confused?
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't know how we came about that particular condition. You know what, it's probably in the minutes from last meeting.
You know what number it is?
I don't, I'm looking at the conditions right now,
Okay.
trying to see if it stirs a memory.
No plowed snow shall be stored. Number 48.
Oh, 49. Oh, wait a minute, okay. No sodium chloride, use of untreated de-icing, calcium may be allowed. I think it was 49, actually.
Okay.
I mean, ideally, we want to get away from any chloride product, calcium, magnesium, or sodium.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically sodium for sure, but chloride is the issue.
I mean, you can change you can change these at any time. So like, for instance, for 10 Broadway, if you wanted to specify what was acceptable as far as a de-icing product, we just rewrite number 49 to say for each individual project.
Okay,
Just because it's in the standard doesn't necessarily mean that we have to keep the language.
okay,
It's just sort of like, this is usually what we say, or we usually talk about. We can delete and you can add and you can change. It's just trying to give us a template.
okay.
But Rebecca, shouldn't we look at all of those sections in a new standard order to see how many feet we want to put in those sections? 45.
Yes.
So maybe we could put, I'm gonna ask Ken, can you pull up? Or maybe Bob can, the new standard order?
I've got it on my screen.
Okay, then Paul, can you share your screen?
Yeah. There it is. These are the perpetual conditions you want, right?
Yes.
There's dumping of any landscape debris within X feet of wetland resource areas, pesticides, herbicides within X, Y feet, fertilizer, plowed snow, and sodium chloride. I think that's the list.
Yeah,
So
It's hard to know what to put in here without looking at the plan.
I was just gonna say, do you guys want to pull up a plan?
Yes.
I will
Otherwise,
stop sharing then because we can't do both of them.
and with number 48 about the no snow, plowed snow shall be stored within X feet of this resource area. We could also say we don't want snow stored anywhere on the
Right.
site.
In the
Right,
buffer zone.
yeah. Okay,
Ken,
Alright.
do you have the landscape plan that you could pull up? Because that shows some of the trees and it doesn't show the stormwater management system, but I was just thinking that might be the easiest one.
What do you need to look at specifically? I'm sorry.
Ken is the man.
Oh, that's
do we still have an as-built requirement in here somewhere? I'm looking for it.
Should.
Yeah,
I'm not,
Did Rebecca remove that to the other stuff at the end?
I don't know, I haven't found.
Isn't
it
that
yet.
all? Isn't that what we want for everything? You
We
know?
want the other stuff all in this one though, I think.
It's
Except for
in
the pool.
43. 43B.
right. In order to get a certificate of compliance, right?
Okay. Very good.
That made me nervous, Bob.
I hadn't got to
Oh my
43 yet.
God, how'd that
It
happen?
was a test. There was a
I was
test.
working my way through and I hadn't got to 43 yet.
Okay.
So now that we have this, the first one was 45, no storing or dumping of any landscape debris, including leaves, grass clippings, or other debris within blank feet.
So you have just those limited landscape areas that are sort of on the perimeter of the parking spaces there. I mean, so you really could, I mean, I assume they're gonna be.
Yeah, they're not
kept
dumping,
and cleared.
they're not dumping anything on site there. None of those items would be dumped on site. There's no place to put it. You'd see it. You'd see piles or whatever.
No, you
number
can
I
find-
doubt
Number 40
they're not gonna dump landscape debris.
No, they're gonna take the grass clippings, they're gonna be back, taken off site.
Right.
Um,
Same with prunings for any shrubs that they do
Yeah,
also prune.
yeah.
So then 45 is gonna say there'll be no storing or dumping of any landscape debris on the
Right.
site.
Yeah,
Okay, and then 46, the use of pesticides, herbicides within blank feet of a,
well, for that, I'm assuming we can't regulate outside of areas that are jurisdictional, can we?
yeah, it has to be less than 100 feet, fewer than
Right.
100 feet.
You
Well,
also
yeah.
have riverfront here in some area.
Oh, good point.
I mean, I really don't think it's that valuable, here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, can we go back to the drawing again, the plan? Sorry. So the
I mean, you could put it in the
semicircle,
buffer zone. You could say nothing in the
Yeah,
buffer.
that's the riverfront and the buffer to inland bank right there, that dashed circle.
right.
Yeah,
I mean, there's very little vegetated area within there. There's a grass and landscape strip beyond the curb up to the
all of
property
the,
line.
that landscape strip. Well, you've got the picnic tables and the grass and that little circle over there.
Right.
So that area will be maintained.
I mean, the limit of work line to the resource area is how close?
It's like right on the edge of the
It's gonna be
stone.
the fence line, I think, Bob.
Yeah. And the area beyond those trees that are close, facing the edge of water, is that, what is going on there? I can't tell. All right. Oh, there's a fence. Okay, got it. I see it. See it now. I'm not sure, what is that distance? 10 feet? 10 feet. So the closest point there would be,
Where's the property line on this?
The fence, I think.
Where's that? I'm sorry, just can you put the cursor on it?
I mean, obviously they're not gonna do anything beyond the fence line no matter what,
Right.
I'm
anywhere.
sorry, can you just scroll it?
Actually,
right along
I
the-
think it's that straight line, the straight heavy line that goes right below the words edge of water.
Right, so like all that stuff on the edge of water, it's not even the property, on the property. All that stuff that's, yeah,
On the other side of the edge of water, yeah.
all that stuff
Yeah.
with the like mosaic is not on the property.
Most
Correct.
of that is not, yes.
And there's a fence separating.
Yeah,
property
so that's
from
what I
it.
thought. When we did the site walk, it looked to me like, that there was, and then on the other side of that fence is just like pavement or something. It's really, we're not, we're not solving for anything by having, given that it's probably asphalt right up to the edge of the water on the other guy's property.
It's either asphalt or crushed stone. It says crushed stone over there to the right, so.
The only thing I would say is keep in mind that anything that falls on this pavement goes into the catch basin and then goes into a culvert. So in essence, it goes into the stream, does get treated first for the TSSs and whatnot. So because that's how, so this edge of water, that stream, which is actually a perennial stream, goes underground there. And it goes across the street under Broadway, goes under the
Virginia High
DPW,
School.
joins another one, and then keeps going on its way. So anything that gets in there, gets in that system, really gets discharged to the Mill River.
Right. It's
Right,
going.
but
all
it
the
doesn't
way
go back
down.
into Crystal Lake, and that was the thing we were.
No, it's going the other direction. It's going to Shaw's.
All the other way.
Yeah, it's making its way into Shaw's and making its way out over there. In that area to the Mill River.
So, I mean, it would be sort of equivalent as looking at it as it enters a pipe and discharges directly into the Mill River. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I would just say that if you were limiting anything within the buffer zone, it's not only just because of that edge of water that's located right there. It would also be because it's, in essence, whatever's there goes into the Mill River.
I mean, everything in the street is going there too.
There's a lot going there.
Yeah.
This is probably
This is
a
one
smaller
hair.
contribution.
Yeah, this is one hair
Considerably
on the,
smaller,
one hair on
yeah.
the dog,
Right,
That's
right.
right.
But it,
Yeah.
it's true.
unless you have a hairless dog.
But dogs don't have hair, really.
Fur,
Well, some of them have.
it's one strand,
There's some
yeah.
So
plenty
can we go,
hairy
can we go
dogs.
back to the conditions? I'm sorry.
So what do we want to say about 46?
It's, yeah, it's not that I want to get through this, but I want to get through this.
Yes, let's wrap it up.
I mean, if you go to the property line, you're talking about 8 feet from the
Resource area.
resource area. So do you say within 8 feet, because that brings them to the fence? Or do you limit
For
that in that one
pesticides
area?
and all that,
They're not going to stop, you know, they're gonna fertilize the other areas and they're not going to stop at one
It's
point.
asphalt right up, isn't it just asphalt right up to the,
not all of it, no.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Ken,
that-
flip back to the drawing, please. So there we go. That's the area between the red ends is the area we're talking about. The rest of the area is going to be mowed and fertilized and everything else. So you get that strip, that vegetated strip, the grass strip.
Right,
with
where
the
it says
trees.
grass, right.
Yeah, and it comes out around those tables and that. And in that area, they're gonna need to do something to at least maintain that vegetation. Right?
Do we say within the whatever closest point, nothing? So do we let them do whatever they want on that little strip, and the fence is the barrier? Or do we put a sign on each end of the red line and say no herbicides or whatever between these 2 points,
What 2 points?
the red and the red? That's the only area jurisdictional.
So none of the
No
buffer.
herbicides, no
Okay, I got you.
fungicide. I mean, I think the big issue is gonna be, they're gonna need to do some fertilization just to maintain those plants there.
Yeah.
you don't want the
Grass.
stuff to not thrive. I mean, we're
Right.
better.
Right.
So they're gonna need fertilizer. They may need minimal pesticides, but
They're
maybe
gonna
the
put
way
down
to
a
put
grub
it
killer
is.
probably.
Sorry?
They're probably gonna put a grub killer down in the grass.
Yeah. I mean,
Which
it
is
may
actually-
be you want to tell them to minimize the use of, rather than no use. Use should be minimized to maximum extent feasible.
That
And
doesn't mean-
and
that-
maybe for herbicides, I mean, I'm not sure
That's
herbicides
ha-
are all
that's
that
happy
essential there. I
Right.
mean, honestly, crabgrass is one of the few things that'll stay green during these dry summers.
So
Yeah.
maybe we put a sign up on each end where the red arc ends and say something about minimal use of blah, blah, blah between
Mhm.
this area or something like that. We could condition that, a sign on each end where,
Yeah,
you know, Ken has the arrow on the right side and then where the arc ends on the left side. You know, signage indicating that this is a sensitive area and minimum use of whatever.
hmm
So that would, so that therefore 46 and 47 would say, the use of pesticides and fertilizers shall be minimized to the extent possible within the,
the 100-foot buffer areas.
All right, I have to say this. You guys know that means absolutely nothing, right?
I know,
I
exactly.
know.
Okay, I'm just, as long as we're
No,
clear
that's
on
what I-
this.
Rebecca, that's what I
Well, I
said.
guess the question is, what can we say?
It's
So,
happy speech.
Reduce.
If we're gonna say that, pretty much every order of conditions means nothing when you get right down
No,
to
that's
it.
right.
No, what it means is that in the event that something goes wrong, is that you have something to fall back on and say that this was written, that this was, you were not supposed to do that, therefore this becomes your problem.
And that's why I'm suggesting some signage between those 2 points.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think if you have,
Kind of force it.
in regard to fertilizer, to get something established, you could, one of the previous conditions had mentioned, and it is a good idea in the event that you're looking to have them put down fertilizer, is that prior to any application, they get the soil tested at UMass, because that tells them exactly what they need. Potentially, if they
Good
go through the
thought.
trouble of
Yeah.
having that tested, then maybe they will adhere to the recommendations from them, but I mean, I just maximum extent and minimal, just those words
I
don't mean
agree.
anything to anybody. It's,
I
I
agree.
would say it's either all or
Good point.
none. That's the only thing that means anything.
It's not reasonable to expect that nothing will be used there. Landscaper is just gonna come along with his spreader and just keep going.
So what if we take out 46 and 47 if for this project and just say signage shall be placed at the you know, at the two ends of the buffer zone along the whatever northeast, whatever, you know, property line to show, you know, just to say what, and we say that instead of no pesticides, no fertilizers within blank feet.
Mhm.
What's wrong with that?
A-
Wait,
and
say that again. So you have signage that indicates the buffer zone, and then what else does it say?
Well, I guess whatever, Bob, what did you say the signage should say?
I don't know.
Sensitive area, you said sensitive area.
Play it
Bob, you
back.
said, yeah, these are, you know, sensitive wetland areas and anything else?
Hey,
I don't remember what I said, but yeah, it was something about, you know, the signs with the arrows pointing, you know,
Yeah,
inward saying, you know, this is a sensitive area. I don't remember what I said. Minimal.
Can you say reduced
It
rather
doesn't
than
mean
minimal?
anything.
No, still
Who's
doesn't help.
produced to who? The guy who is
Right.
gonna go out there and do it. It
So,
just,
what's the sign that you see if you're on 95 and you come to oh, I know, reduce salt
salt
areas.
areas.
Oh, that's right. Well, what I was
Thank
gonna, but what I was gonna get at was, do some towns, has anyone seen, Rebecca, have you ever seen some towns that have sort of like something says that, you know, environmentally sensitive area procedures or something, and they just have like a standard thing that they recommend, you'll follow those, or do people ever, like, are there certain contractors that are certified to deal with, you know, environmentally sensitive areas that we would say you'll hire one of those? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to think of things that are real that you can, that there's like, isn't there like a protocol that we can just have a, you know, a standby protocol saying within that area, you will not use things except in accordance with, you know, the procedures for environmentally sensitive areas or something. Just we can reference it and not just try to, you know.
I haven't seen that.
And this is
Um,
going to be kind of the precedence we set going forward for all projects. So whatever we kind of figure out here, we'll be able to apply.
Well,
going
that's right.
forward.
That's what I'm saying. And could we, and are there, I'll ask you this, do we have any contractors that we know that deal with this that can say, yeah, here's what we do. Here we have a set, you know, we have a set protocol that we call it, and we call it the XYZ protocol. And we would say, can we, you know, can we make that our protocol? And because my point would be that they will, you know, what I would say is you would alert your contractors to this, you know, that make them commit to doing that they're gonna, you know, that they're going to, because that in some ways is the thing that you want, you know, if you can get third parties to say that we got to follow something, or we know what, you know, that know what they're doing. I'm not going to solve. We're not going to solve this tonight, I guess, but it just
No, we're not.
that it just seems to me that we ought to be able to come up with, and maybe some of the contractors that are used to dealing in environmentally sensitive areas just call it the, you know, they have like a package that they follow when you're in an area like this. Here's the things that we do. We do these 7 things in recognition of the sensitivities, and we can just try to glom onto something like that.
Is there examples from other conservation commissions for that?
Yeah. Or even from contractors that would, you know, they have a laminated sheet that they put in the trucks that, you know, when they're in those areas, that here are the things you don't do.
I don't know if we should be trusting what a contractor says is appropriate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And I think everything's so diverse, you know, what's sensitive
And
for
that's,
what reason.
I understand
in
that.
different areas,
If
so
you tell
it's-
me that's the reason there isn't one, I would believe you. I just don't. I just was thinking that somehow we're struggling to do something that I would think we would, you know.
Well, but this site in particular doesn't lend itself to those kinds of restrictions. I mean, I think the
You're probably right. This is kind of unique. And on the one hand, we want some stuff to grow here, so we can't sort of talk out of both sides of our mouth. and say that you know, we want you to grow stuff that thrives but we don't want you to use any fertilizers or herbicides or, you know.
I just
I mean-
found a state regulation, 333 Mass Reg 11.04, and it's in sensitive area restrictions. No more than the minimum labeled rate of herbicide for the appropriate site, pest and application shall be applied.
Look at that.
Oh, you know what you could do too? Sorry.
No, go ahead. I mean, I was just thinking.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. This
Yeah,
is,
this isn't,
oh,
when, we don't have to
oh.
invent something new here.
No, but I'm just looking at this, 333 Mass Reg 1104. It just says sensitive area restrictions, and it's got a laundry list.
Yeah.
You know, you
I
could
mean,
This
it's
do.
applies to
primarily around
pesticides.
herbicides, but it's at
Pesticides, yeah.
least, I mean, you could use
No,
the
it
same
covers, it
thing.
covers fertilizer
Does
too.
it say low
Yeah.
phosphorus
doesn't?
fertilizer, Paul
Yeah,
or
let me
Peter?
see.
Low phosphorus or low nitrogen fertilizer? Anything about, mention about that?
I'm looking at, I only see, primarily it's talking about herbicides in this. But,
Yeah, you're right. It is talking about.
I mean, we could also, I mean, there's nothing that says,
But that's having to do, that's a transportation thing.
Yeah.
I don't.
But you know what? Wait, hold on. What about this? So it sounds like that in regard to fertilizer, the biggest concern is that you want the vegetation to take off and be stable. So why don't you write it that way? That they can get a standard soil test, they can apply fertilizer for the first couple of years until it's established, and at that point, once there's the certificate of compliance or a sign off from the commission, that everything is established, and once the the grass is growing and everything's secure, after that, then you could say there's none or limited or whatever.
Or at
I
that
love
point,
that.
or you get the soil tested yearly after that point to see what actually is needed, if anything. Like we've done at Heron Pond.
Yeah, I just, yeah, you could do that.
Restricted use pesticides must be used under order of direct supervision of a certified applicator. So they have things
But
where,
that's a right of, I mean, again, those are restrictions for,
yeah,
sensitive areas.
yeah, next to right of ways, right? I mean, that
Well,
be,
does it have to be?
well, that's what those regulations are for. How's that?
And that's a whole different ballgame. I mean, you need to maintain sight lines and everything else for public safety. That's different than pretty lawns and yards and landscape areas.
Right.
I mean, this is just, to be honest, this is just aesthetics. It's nothing else. This is just so it looks pretty.
I like Rebecca's idea of saying you get tested, right, and then you figure out what you have to do in order to establish growth, and after 2 years, for a certain number of years.
And periodic soil testing to determine additional fertilization needs as appropriate.
The only way that's gonna happen though is if we require them to send us the yearly testing, and that's kind of just a administrative nightmare.
I wouldn't do it yearly.
No, it doesn't.
Like Heron Pond, it's a requirement yearly.
Well, Heron Pond is a special case. I don't think
You
you
could
should use
do
that as an example. This is not Heron Pond.
you could have them test when they do the planting, or an initial test to get the baseline or whatever. And you could say you're required to test and submit it to you guys. Then you could say you're required to test one more test before the certificate of compliance or the expiration of the order, and that gets submitted to you. And then you could make a language of, at that point, it'll be determined whether or not it'll be allowed or it will not be allowed. So for instance, you have the option based on that next soil test to get permission from the commission to continue fertilizing for 2 more years, and then they have to come back. Or if it looks good, then you say, okay, from that point, there'd be no more usage within the buffer zone.
And how likely is it that will actually happen?
It's not so much, to be honest with you, it's not so much that me following, I don't have time, but it'd be great. But it's not so much of saying, okay, that 3 years is up, I'm gonna go check on it. It's that if something goes wrong or someone does a complaint, I have the backup information I need to go and say, okay, that's not what was supposed to happen. This is what it says in the order. This is what it says in the certificate of compliance. So now we need to correct it. So it's more under that circumstance, to be honest with you, than me policing each.
No, you can't police it. I mean,
Right.
it's almost like an honor system that they'll do it.
It is until something happens.
Right,
or
I
we're
understand. I
notified.
understand what you're saying.
And then,
Rebecca.
so if it's not there, or if it just says you can do it to minimize or maximum extent, then when someone's come and complains to me, or we see something, or someone's water test, whatever happens, I have nothing to go back on, because they're gonna say, oh, that's our maximum or minimum or whatever. So there's nothing really spelled out. So I'm just saying, I understand the establishment of the plants and you want that. But I mean, we know how it goes, that people just lay fertilizer every spring, every fall, they just do their program. And it might not be necessary. I mean, that is one of the, why we have some of the issues we have. Don't we being, we collective US. not
Yes.
we.
Well, yeah, well,
Yes,
quarter
the
quarter
word.
pilot's a perfect example.
It sure is.
So here's a question. What does Winchester do in situations like this?
Well, we don't have Elaine here, so we don't know.
Is there any kind of thing that contractors, that certain contractors, like any kind of certification that they have? Because I'll tell you, I'm just looking at something from the internet, and they focus a lot on, you hire contractors that are trained to deal in environmentally sensitive areas. I mean, they just have training, and that.
I mean, we have that too, though, when you talk about herbicide applications, right? Make sure you have a licensed applicator, make sure they do it on the windless day. I mean, does anyone here know if that ever happens?
Well, I know,
Yeah,
but now we're vacillating between the point of, should we be aspirational, or should we just throw up our hands and say, no one's going to listen to us? And
I think you should be aspirational,
I think so too.
because when, like I said,
Well, I know, but I thought you were going the opposite way on that.
oh, no.
No, but you have to
I'm
weigh,
not.
you have to weigh in the situation though, for this, for this type of project.
understand. I
Are
just
we
didn't know.
now,
I just don't know what.
requiring, specialized contractors for this size or this scope? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't even know if those exist.
I have
Yeah,
a,
that's what I
I
was curious.
have a question. This is just my ignorance. Like what, how big of a deal is it for someone to do that testing? How much, does
You can
someone
get,
balk at it, or will someone understand what they're supposed to do and be like, yeah, it's a guy with a shovel and it costs $30 type of thing?
It's pretty simple and
Yeah.
it's straightforward, and UMass has directions, and I think it's free. If
Okay.
it's
I
not
think
free,
it's $20, Rebecca, but
is
yeah,
it $20?
Yeah.
yeah,
I
a
was
friend of
gonna
mine
say-
just did it for her garden, and you can send them a bunch of samples for that too.
Yeah.
And they just, I think it used to be free. Maybe it's $20 now. I feel like it was at one point, but nonetheless, it's not, it's
Hey,
a
state
very, very.
budget's tight everywhere.
Say again?
But the state budget is tight everywhere. Kim.
Oh.
But maybe you could put in the reference to find out, more about the
Yeah.
process.
Yep, I have all that. I know
Right.
the information. Yeah, we could do that. And I mean, I think you guys had that in some of your conditions before, and then I got taken out because I have no idea if anyone ever did it. But but knowing, I mean, if you put it in there once or twice, knowing for something specific and that we're going to want to receive it, if it's spelled out like that, it's just easier for me to follow, look back on, and
Mhm.
maybe we'll be able to monitor these things at some point if we get more time to do that. But as opposed to just having a standard, maybe we'll just throw it in when we think it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree that we, it does, I mean, it doesn't make sense all the time. Okay, so let's go back to what we want to do here. I mean, I like Rebecca's thought of language. And I don't know, Rebecca, if you made notes of it so that you could write it down.
I didn't make notes. It's in my head, but we'll re-talk about it a little bit more. I figure by the end of this, I'll have something written down.
Okay, should we start that now? Should we try that now?
Is that what you guys want to do? Do you want to go
Oh,
down?
sorry, yeah, that's what I'd
Yes.
like to do, but what would
I
I?
would like to do that too. I think we just have to come up with some general language. Obviously, we're not going to be able to crib from something else.
So you're gonna you're gonna say that they should initially do an initial soil test at UMass, right? To find out
Yes.
what they need.
To find out.
That's for fertilizer applications, yeah.
And I'll give them, I'll include the information.
And fertilizer
gonna
application should be according to the rates recommended by
Yep.
UMass,
Okay.
Cooperative
And
Extension.
yep. Hold on.
What about
do-
the rest of this stuff?
I do
Herbicides and
think, I do think
pesticides.
we want to condition some signage
Yeah,
on each side of
wait,
that
like-
too.
Yes, I
Wait,
love
hold-
the signs.
Yes,
But hold on
hold
one
that
sec.
thought for a second, Bob. Let's just finish this.
So wait, you're gonna have the initial soil test. It's gonna get sent to the commission. The results. They're going to use to establish the plants, they're gonna use the recommended soil, according to the test.
Recommended fertilizer. for the
Recommended
soil
fertilizer, right.
results.
I don't even know what I said, but that's what I meant.
You said soil, but that's okay.
Is that what I said? It's kind of, I think I have it in my head anyway. And then after 3 years is when it's supposed to expire. And at the time of the certificate of compliance, they're going to conduct another test. So we'll put that in the order, maybe in the certificate of compliance section.
But the certificate of compliance in 3 years is not the same thing. So there's no certificate of compliance until for 3 years, Rebecca?
I guess what I'm saying is the order of conditions is good for 3 years. They're supposed to request a certificate of compliance prior to the expiration of their order. So they're supposed to request a certificate of compliance within.
But what if they request a certificate, they're done in a year and they come back in a year?
Okay, so we're just gonna, you want to just say after 3 years total?
Do
Yeah,
we have any control over them once we issue the certificate of compliance? No.
well, you could write it as an ongoing condition. Every 3 to 5 years, they get a soil test, they submit. Someone had recommended that too already. But I thought the whole point was just to get it established.
I agree, it is just to get it established. So go back to what you said, Rebecca, that at the time of request for a certificate of compliance, that,
Or I was gonna say prior to.
okay, prior to, if the landscaped area is the landscaped area must be established, or what are you thinking there?
That if the landscaped, it would have to be at the time of the certificate of compliance anyway.
Right, okay, that
Then we wouldn't typically issue it until the site is stabilized and where that's in that location. Everything would be growing.
okay, so once the landscaped area is established, then what, right, then what, then?
You could write, and then no more fertilizer application unless written permission is granted by the commission based on a submitted soil test.
Perfect. And is that just with fertilizer? What about pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and
That's
insecticides?
up to you guys. We were talking fertilizer to get the plants
You know a lot
established, so.
we gotta be careful about pesticides because they are gonna need to do rat baiting in that building.
Yeah.
That's gross.
True, though, especially in that neighborhood.
Yeah, they'll have traps around the dumpster area and around the
Yeah.
perimeter.
Yeah, they're gonna have to deal with that. I think herbicides should not be allowed in any of the areas where we have jurisdiction.
Okay,
I just don't see the need.
okay.
Well, a lot of your fertilizers contain crabgrass preventers and weed preventers and all that.
They don't have to.
They don't have to, but a lot of them do.
If you get a soil test, they're gonna tell you need to apply this much nitrogen, this much phosphorus, this much potassium, which may or may not be the mixture that Miracle-Gro sells you with the herbicide already baked in.
Depending on how serious you are about these conditions, so we have we have a condition that talks about once the contractor is hired, that there's a pre-construction meeting and he or she has to sign that they understand this order of conditions and that they're responsible for it. I suppose you could do something with the landscaper. Submit the name of the landscaping company that'll be used and name and number, and somehow submit a written statement or email that says that they have read these conditions and they understand them. That's what we do for the construction aspect of it.
So the construction contractor has to
Yep.
show that.
Mhm.
Can we
I think you
make,
can do that for the first landscape contractor, but you
Right.
know that landscape contractor will probably change every year or two.
Yeah, it's true.
But there's, I mean, the best we can do is impose some conditions and
yeah.
You know,
Some of
also,
this is
yeah,
within 100
it
feet
might-
of, some of this is within 100 feet of Crystal Lake, and that actually has a.
well, yeah, and it seems to me that we don't want anything within that area. That's watershed for water supply.
So some of that, I mean, I'm looking at the map, you know, that the one portion of it, you know, there's a little bit of it that's
Yeah.
with, yeah. And my thought would be just.
There's nothing that one would call treatment between the site and there. Certainly the MBTA tracks don't provide it.
I think because the water flows the other way away from
Right.
Crystal Lake, that
It doesn't
Well, the
flood
stream
really.
flows the other way, but what about drainage from
it
the
does.
site?
The drainage gets collected in the catch basin and then goes out towards Broadway.
Yeah.
So it's all gonna be going towards the Mill River.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's going that
Okay.
way. This way. Did you guys get that? This way.
Yes.
Yeah, I understood. Towards you, Rebecca.
Oh, yeah,
This way.
that's clear to me now, Rebecca. that-
Okay, good. Glad I could help. And then Bob, the signs with the arrows, sensitive, one on each end, sensitive areas.
Yeah.
I like that.
Sensitive environmental area, sensitive watershed area, sensitive whatever, something.
I think someone said sensitive wetland area at one point.
Resource.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wetland area, sensitive wetland area sounds good.
And you
Resource.
wanted to say anything other than that? Limited. You could put right on the sign, limited fertilizer, no herbicide. I wouldn't do that.
No,
That's too
Yeah, I
much.
think just saying sensitive wetland area would be sufficient.
Yeah, I agree.
it's just gonna draw the attention and make
Right.
them aware,
Exactly.
make everybody aware.
Yeah, I like this
Oh,
first
oh.
thing from the reg that you got, Paul, and no more than the minimum label rate of, this says herbicide, for the appropriate site, pest, and application method shall be.
But
applied.
why would they want
That's-
to put more, why
that's
would they
true
want to put
for-
more than recommended level, really?
That's true for all the regs. That's true for our conditions. It's
label
true
rate.
for.
I know, I sort of like that though, you know. Because they do, you open up a bag of that stuff and they say you should, you know, that you should do it at X rate, you know.
You dump it in, you still have a little left, what am I gonna do? We're not gonna put it back in the bag, I'm just gonna keep going.
Oh, you know what else you could do? I just thought of this too. Sorry.
Nobody puts it back in the bag.
Herbicide shall be applied only selectively.
You could require them to, sometimes I've seen it in spray paint and sometimes I've seen it like on a label that says, a lot of times it says drain to stream in front of the catch basin. Do you guys know those
Yes, I've
labels?
seen that,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, you see them in Boston all the time, that drains to the harbor.
Yeah, well, as I
Yeah.
said, right,
Wakefield.
drains to Mill River.
Yeah,
We have them, drains to the
Yeah,
lake.
I've seen them in Wakefield, yeah.
Can we put the?
that's true. I've seen the ones for drains to Lake Quannapowitt too here, yes.
Can we put the
On this side.
burden on them to say that they will submit a plan that will set forth, you know, a plan for you know, for applying in a manner consistent with the environmentally sensitive, you know, aspect of the site, you know, whatever.
We should have talked about that before if you wanted them to submit something, don't you think?
With the applicant, yeah, I agree.
I
Yeah,
just didn't know if contractors had something that they, you know, like a
You
good.
think very highly of contractors, I swear to God.
No, but I mean.
Contractors are thieves.
I guess what I'm saying is if there's one landscaper that says, look, we like, isn't there a landscaper that does all the stuff at not you know, what's the one on, off Pleasure Island Road, I'm sorry, Audubon, you know what I mean, that they must have to, they have a contractor that's selected because of some sort of expertise. And if we tell them, look, you gotta hire a contractor to do this because you're within 100 feet of Crystal Lake. And you're near you're near a river.
I don't know
if we
that,
can-
any of that, I've heard of that,
I don't
but
think we can force them to.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I don't think so either.
Okay.
well, I think the only thing you could do, and Paul, I know we just talked about this, but is require them, like during the pre-construction, to have a pre-landscape meeting with the contractor so they understand they can't do it. And then you could write, and any subsequent change would have to go through the same process. Now, I'm not sure that entire thing would happen, but I think it has a greater chance of being the conditions being stuck to if someone, because there's a lot more conversation about it. So whoever is the manager of this building will hire the contractor and know that this first contractor is going to have to go through this process. And if any
Right.
changes contractors, he's more likely, or that person's more likely to say, well, I know I did it last time, especially if it wasn't too much trouble, I'll go do it again. And then if it becomes, you know what I mean? So I just feel like it's more likely that it would be understood if you did that. However, you're right, they could change every year and it could get lost in the shuffle. It might, I don't know. Or we just put these conditions in like this and see what happens.
So far you only have one condition about doing the soil samples, right?
Well, and I have no herbicides, and then I have the addition of the 2 signs.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's good. Okay. And that takes care of
So 45, 46, 47,
46, 47,
we're on to 48.
and 48.
No, we're on 48 now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're on 48 now.
No plowed snow shall be stored within the wetland, within the resource area.
I don't think there's any place in that little stretch.
Right, to put it.
snow. If you go back to the plan, there's really no storage in that area, that jurisdictional area. Yeah, you've got the pathway, you've got some parking spots, and you got the tree, grass line. There really isn't a good spot to put any snow there.
What's the harm in putting not in the resource area or not in the buffer zone?
We could
Not in the
say-
buffer zone, just
Yeah.
simply that, yeah.
And then the signs, I guess, would indicate where no snow storage would be, the signs we have
Right.
on either side. Maybe we also on those signs say no snow storage, with the
Right.
arrow in this area.
That's a good idea. So
Okay.
no snow storage within again, the written words would be within the buffer zone, and on the sign it would say, no storage.
Between the 2 signs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was easy.
And then we have 49. I thought we were going to change this in general.
Right, that was when I was,
No chloride-based de-icers shall be used within the buffer areas.
Well,
I mean, everything that's on Broadway, everything that's parking lot, everything's gonna make its way.
Right, well, unfortunately, as you said, this is a hair on the dog in terms of
Yeah,
the impacts with chloride.
yeah.
Town's
If you
gonna
guys
have
do
to
it,
change
if you
its
do it with
act.
every project you get, maybe it all add up.
We'll get-
Yeah,
we'll get-
I mean, you're
take care of
right, we
5
might as
years.
well start.
One hair at a time.
yeah.
Wait, what did you
How-
guys
How do
say
you
about
eat an elephant, one bite at a time?
What'd you say, Rebecca?
No, I'll go back to it. Sorry, I don't want to get off topic.
Let's. I mean,
So what do you want to say? No.
no chloride-based de-icers shall be used
Within the buffer zone.
within the buffer zone or the riverfront area buffer.
The riverfront area buffers is 200 feet. It's a lot it's a lot.
Yeah, but not on this lot. Normally it is a lot, but
Oh,
it's,
good point.
because it's
I
only
thought it was
perpendicular.
100 feet.
No, that's what they show, but the riverfront area is 200 feet. That
Yeah,
has,
100 is the inner riparian, the 200 is the outer riparian.
Yeah, but the buffers, the riverfront, because it's a perpendicular line, you have more buffers on the riverfront on this particular lot.
Right.
We just wanted documented that this is indeed a perennial stream, for future purposes. It wasn't it was less about the riverfront, to be honest with you, which is unusual, but in this particular circumstance.
tell me what, should we just say then no
Fluoride
chloride
is
de-ices within the,
buffer zone.
yes, buffer zone?
Okay.
Okay, that took care of that one. What are we up to now? That's it. That's
Oh,
number-
wait, one question. Did you guys want to put that, drains to river in front of the catch basins on site?
Would make
Yeah.
sense.
It
Yeah,
would
why
be,
not?
that'd be-
Why
that'd
not
be great.
start?
No, I love it. I think we should start doing that on a lot of
Yeah, on
things.
all
I
projects.
agree. Whenever I
Commercial
see those, I,
projects should have it. That should be one of those other stuff things that we
Right.
have at the
you should
back
put
end,
that
Rebecca.
as a perpetual condition, put it on the form.
Oh, okay, I will. I'll add that. Well, do you guys have, why don't you vote on that after this?
Do we want to use our some of our funds to make some of these up and we can
Okay.
have them?
We could spray paint it like at how they, and anytime they restripe, they have to repaint it like with a stencil? Or do you prefer something else?
Does the town do that anywhere right now? Like DPW do that
The
right
things
now?
I've seen like all metal things like in the ground.
Oh, the Boy Scouts stuck metal sticker, like circular stickers
Right,
on.
exactly. This,
Yeah, the Scouts did that as an Eagle project.
those are great. Those might be expensive because they're metal.
I
Yeah.
used to have some of those in the office. Judy, didn't we used to have some of those that said drains to stream and it was like an oval?
I think so.
I don't think I have them anymore.
And don't you have the beaver signs?
DPW might have some.
Yeah.
That'd be great if we could get those.
All right, would you want that instead? All right.
Or maybe John would offer to underwrite the cost.
There you go.
John?
John Ogren.
Ogren.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
They paid for the signs before, that's why.
Have
Yeah.
they?
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. We've done granite bounds, we've done signs. Yeah, up in Lovis, I think they did some signs and granite bounds.
So are we done with these now, Rebecca?
I think you're done going through the standards, so it's just whether or not there was anything else you guys wanted to add.
But
Specific.
you want to go to the back
building.
end there where you've got that other stuff. All of those are applicable, it would seem. No?
We just went over those. What are you talking about?
All the way at the back of the standard conditions.
Other
Rebecca
stuff, add
dropped.
when
Oh,
applicable.
I'm sorry.
Other
I'm
stuff.
sorry.
Oh, I deleted that off my copy. I forgot about that.
You want,
Other
I
stuff.
think you want all of these back in there for these guys. And these are conditions that should apply to commercial type developments, no?
All right, hold on, let me read them.
I mean, leave out the pool because I don't think there is one, but
Right.
everything else,
Yep, the O&M plan, SWIP plan.
NIPD's,
Yeah.
stormwater prevention, SWIP,
Yeah,
erosion controls and all of that.
on all detention basin outlet stormwater. We don't have that, do we? I don't think we have any of those.
I don't think they have a detention basin, do they?
No,
No,
let's not do that one.
You can leave off the last two, but the rest of them,
I don't think you get, the contractor shall install temporary residence on all detention basin outlet pipes and stormwater drainage system outlet pipes. I don't think you need that one.
I agree.
So just the next one, the first and the third.
but you do want to see the various applicable permitting, right?
So what paragraph? So the first paragraph, the second paragraph, and
And the
the,
last,
1, 2, 4.
and the fourth.
okay, yep.
Okay.
Good work crossing it out, Rebecca.
And also, Rebecca, on that fourth one could be where you tuck in the language saying that they need to label the catch basins as draining to, you know,
Yeah. Yep, I'll stick those in the right spots.
okay.
Good thinking, Paul. I had forgotten about those.
Me too. You had to turn the page.
I just kept scrolling until I
looking
found
at
the
the-
pages.
I'm looking at the hard copy. I didn't realize it was
too.
up on the
Oh,
screen.
I don't have hard
I
copy.
have a hard copy. I didn't turn the page, Bob.
Oh.
I don't keep paper.
That's very wise.
I've got
Much
piles of it
easier.
here.
Me too, Bob.
Regulations and all kinds of junk.
Yeah.
Tree policy and all of Rebecca's email, like,
That's a lot.
well,
You
like
keep those in hard copy?
reviewing his
My
notice of
God.
intent and all kinds of stuff that Rebecca sent.
Oh,
me.
all right, are you ready to vote on this, order of conditions?
Yeah.
So
Seems like
we're
it should
talking
be.
about a standard order with the specifications mentioned for 47, 48, 49.
And the additional page, right?
And,
And the other stuff page.
yeah, and all the other stuff. Yeah.
I'll
So,
make
yeah,
that motion.
So it's really, we talked about the adjustments to the perpetual conditions and the edits to the
Other stuff.
other stuff.
I think, Rebecca, we may want to come up with a different name for this page eventually.
I like the other stuff page.
Okay.
I forgot that was there.
I like that.
All right, so would somebody like to make that motion?
I just did.
Okay, is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, hearing none, all in favor, Ken,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote yes.
Do you guys want to vote to add that drains to river or stream thing for
Yes.
all of, you want to put that
Yeah.
on the standard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And you put it in that, it seems like it appropriately should be in that paragraph in the other.
Yes, that you pension, Paul. Yes.
But that might not be on every.
Good
Well, I
point.
mean,
No, I get, no, because if you're gonna have it, the drain, then you would have that.
yeah,
condition.
that condition will be there. I mean, we're not going to be applying this to homeowners.
Right.
No.
Right. Okay, I will add that into that paragraph.
All right, so would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion to include the signage for drain to stream in our standard order of conditions.
Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
All
Okay.
in favor, Ken,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. All right, anything else?
Wait, it's not in the standard order. Because it's in the other stuff.
I'm sorry, it's part of the other stuff.
But the other stuff is what we put in when we have,
Right. So it's not a
when we have a
standard.
commercial project.
No, we're adding it to the other stuff section.
But
Right,
the other
and
stuff section
sometimes-
is part of the standard conditions.
Okay. Okay. So it's in the other stuff section. Okay, got it.
Yes. We all, right. Anything else there, Bob?
Rebecca, do you have anything else?
I don't think so.
No more.
Judy?
Nope.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor? Ken,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
I also vote yes. Good night, everybody.
All
Good
right.
night.
On October